Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Me? Oh, I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm just wiping my glasses just as we go live.
Good evening. Hello.
You all okay?
We are. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So, right. Well, welcome everybody that's viewing. Sadly, I can't see you, but over that side or that side, there is a comments box. So please make sure you do comment. So, yes, thank you for joining us again. So, just wanted to confirm that none of the views are that of our organisations that we work for. They are the views of ourselves. Yeah. So last week, just to recap for those that didn't join us or who haven't watched, we discussed life during COVID and what it was like for each of us working through it. We spoke about how we joined a friendship, how we met each other, but the importance of networking and connecting with other people within the industry. And we also spoke about guidance and how frequently, especially for care homes, that guidance changed. But how quite often it was dropped on a Friday evening, quite often after 5 o'clock. And lo and behold, Friday just gone, government thought they would do exactly the same and drop some guidance around masks in care homes on Friday evening. So if you haven't watched our video from last week, please do log into the YouTube channel and have a view. Leave us some comments, let us know if there's anything you wish for us to discuss. So tonight's topic that we wanted to discuss was around vaccines and the current proposal to mandate that for care homes for the elderly. So we've been running a poll on social media, and Adam's going to bring up some of those results. So interestingly, 53% of everybody who voted on our poll has said that there's a no to mandating the vaccine. It'd be great to hear your comments. If you can use the comments bar just to let us know what you think. If you're perhaps one of those people that said yes, we'd love to hear your views as well. And we're delighted tonight to be joined by Sonia Ray, who's the director of Nectar HR. And she's going to be talking to us about, the HR legalities around mandating the vaccine, some of the pros and cons, and also some guidance that she's got for, mandating vaccines. So I think, firstly, if I come to you, Dawn, what's your view on mandating the vaccine in care homes?
I'm not opposed to the vaccine. To be quite honest, the uptake at the care home that I manage is at 98%. The staff have been amazing. They've all wanted the vaccine. I haven't had anybody want to turn it down. In fact, I had staff coming to me because they couldn't make appointments at the time and were worried because they actually hadn't had it. So I'm not opposed to the vaccine. In fact, I'm very pro-vaccine. But at the same time, I do believe it has to be individual choice. I don't think it should be forced, and I think it should be genuine consent. I don't think it should be based on the moral that is accepted, or you go for your staff members go for a vaccine based on a fear of becoming unemployed or unemployable. I don't think that we should have forced consent on anybody.
Thank you. Adam, what do you think?
I mean, I'm sort of on the same wavelength. For me, I think mandating anything just shows that there's a lack of faith in the system. And I think forcing and mandating, the consultation's out, isn't it? The consultation's what we're discussing right now. It's out till May 21st. And when you go through that consultation, all it says is it's going to be considered for elderly care. And that's it. No other care settings are going to be considered for it. So for me, it just shows that there's a lack of faith or a lack of want to work with the elder care sector to get our vaccine levels up. Yes, some areas have got low vaccine take-ups, but again, it is personal choice. Whether we mandate it or not is something that only I think the government will decide. But my main concern is it's going to drastically affect the workforce and what workforces are available. And if other areas of the social care sector or even healthcare aren't mandating it, then all the workers in elder care who don't want it are just going to migrate anywhere else where they're not required to have it. So it's a sticky situation. I think there's a lot of legalities and ethical dilemmas that hopefully Sonia will be able to enlighten us on when she comes on. But yeah, those are my main thoughts on it at the moment.
Thank you. And what about you, Donna?
Yeah, I kind of shadow what Dawn and Adam have said. I mean, personally, from my point of view, I'm very pro-vaccine. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I've got to admit, I'm proud to be British. We are way ahead of any country in our vaccine programme. I think we're down to the over 45s now, which is fantastic. So I personally am pro-vaccine. I, at my home, have got 89% uptake, and I actually think that's really good. It's a better percentage than I get with flu vaccines, which are normally around about the 76, 78% uptake. But Adam just touched on it there. My biggest problem is that, as Adam said, they're trying to make it mandatory for care homes because they are saying that elderly people are the most vulnerable. So, you know, hang on a minute. What about all the elderly people who live in their own homes, which I would say there are as many people being cared for on domiciliary care in the community as there are in care homes? And then what about the NHS? So what about the frail and elderly units, the geriatric units? And it isn't just the frail elderly that are at risk. We all know that the first people who had to shelter were not only the over 70s, but also the people who were highly at risk who were immunocompromised. So what about, you know, the cancer care units? What about the intensive care units? That's the bit that I can't get in my head. So I'm kind of thinking at it very logically. And my big question to the government is, why just care homes? Why not across the whole of the NHS and the whole of health and social care? Then I might understand it a bit more. So I just don't understand why only one sector has been singled out. So, yeah, I just think it's very unfair how it's being done.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I just add as well, the whole thing about it being there to protect people and bringing this protection into care homes. Where was this gusto last April with the ring of protection we were promised around social care? You know, and now we're being vilified. Well, not me personally, but people who work in social care who've worked throughout the entire pandemic aren't having the vaccine are now being vilified. But actually, who's responsible for the failed discharges last year and all the defunct policies and the guidance and the late nights we were having because nothing made sense? It all just seems like we're forgetting what happened last year and we're passing the buck now onto another situation.
Just quickly, Adam, somebody's commented just to say the banner might be covering the speakers.
Oh, poor Dawn. Oh, it's because I've still got the poll up.
I'm not that tech minded, so hopefully you've all been able to hear us this whole time. It's not just been us talking to ourselves.
It was all a ploy. Hi, Dawn and Donna. That's what.
Yeah, you don't want to see me whilst I'm speaking anyway. You can hear me well enough.
I think I completely agree with what you guys are saying, and I think for me, you know, having come from, you know, the learning disability sector where, you know, the death rate was so high for people living with a learning disability is why the government hasn't prioritised them and their services as well. It just doesn't make logical sense to me. And it's where we draw the line. So, okay, we might vaccinate every single care home, you know, staff member, but are we going to vaccinate, you know, the Tesco delivery driver or the maintenance man that needs to come in, or if there's an emergency, we're going to make sure that the paramedics are vaccinated. And, you know, there's got to be a line somewhere, and where, you know, where is that line going to be drawn? And, you know, how that looks is going to be a very interesting one. But, you know, I'm very pro, you know, vaccine, and yeah, I think we should be vaccinated. And, you know, I think if you're offered the vaccine, you should be taking it. But yeah, whether we make it mandatory, and like Adam said, you know, are we actually going to really alienate so much of the workforce when, you know, recruitment's already a struggle? You know, we're all recruiting from the same pond. You know, it's a tough market out there, and are we actually going to make that harder for ourselves in the long run? And I think, you know, we also look at the NHS and, you know, is it going to be mandated there? And, you know, like some of the other jabs that they have. And Adam, I know you've done a lot of work around, you know, whether actually NHS do have mandatory jabs or whether it's just advisory. I don't know if you've got more to say about that.
No, I mean, everyone I'm talking to is telling me that, you know, this Hep B jab is mandatory, but there are risk assessments out there which basically say that, you know, if someone's not having the Hep B jab and they're moving into a different part of the NHS service, are they able to work in services where there's potential of cross-contamination with open wounds, etc., etc. I mean, from someone I was talking to, what they're saying about the NHS not being considered is because of the high uptake that they have had on the vaccine. You know, they're looking at 80-85% in all trust areas. So for me, I mean, that's great, that's grand, but that's something they're used to. You know, that's something that's been part of the NHS culture for years and years and years now, is the necessity to have invasive treatments, basically, to make sure you're safe to work. It's something that's completely new to social care. So for social care to react in some places not have the desired uptake, I don't think the next course of action is automatically mandating it. It should be education, it should be guidance, it should be support. You know, we started off this year with them announcing integrated care systems, and all we're getting so far is actually we can't be bothered working and helping you out. We're just going to mandate it instead, and that way it's just totally going to have to do it. So for me, you know, there's a huge lack of support. Legality-wise, I don't know. So you know, that's Sonia's remit. So
yeah,
I think the SAGE committee did a thing. The SAGE committee did a huge research project into care homes and said that each individual care home needed 80% of staff and 90% of its residents vaccinated in order for it to be immune, if so like. So a lot of carers who I've spoken to over the last week and a half has said, are they saying that this could be mandated on the so we all rush out and get our vaccines now? And that's the way that carers are taking it, that this kind of like a threat rather than action.
But that's what it feels like. But going back to there, what Adam said, you know, what we haven't spoke about is what these medical exemptions are going to be. So I'll bring you a true story now. In 1991, yes, I know, Mark, Adam, you weren't born. But in 1991, when I started my nurse training, were you? Oh, Mark wasn't. Mark's only 12.
I was as well. Just,
no.
yes.
You know,
we don't support ageism, by the way. Everyone's valued at
you know, I was in theory given the Hep B vaccine because I was a student nurse and it's what we were meant to have. However, it didn't take in me, and it didn't take in me because I've got an autoimmune disorder. So I am actually not vaccinated against Hep B, and I've been a nurse for 27 years now. So what are these medical exemptions going to be? They say, but what are they going to be? They haven't discussed them yet. You know, are they going to be those kind of things? Are we talking about people who've had adverse reactions and allergies? So there's this big whole thing is that it's almost, it does feel like a threat, but yet we don't actually know what the criteria are yet. So they're trying to bring something in without actually giving us enough knowledge. So my small group of staff who at the moment have said no, and I'll be honest, majority of them who are saying no just feel it's too early. And let's be honest, we've literally only just finished a huge debate. In fact, it was still in the news today that the AstraZeneca vaccine are still trying to say that this risk of, you know, clots is so minimal, but it's still in the news and it's been in the news for a month. So we are still having in the news headlines, you know, topics about people having reactions and everything, but yet we're trying to make something mandatory. Give it a year at least. That would be
I'll tell you where the AstraZeneca isn't. Denmark. They've just banned it from the country, haven't they, from complete use.
Yeah.
So where's the confidence coming from people? Like, you know, I get people are saying, you know, but it's trialed and we've done this and we've done that. Then when everyone's uniformed and there's a unity on the consensus of it, then maybe everyone should be fine and be forced to have it. No one should be forced. Mark, should we bring Sonia in?
Yes, definitely. Yes, please do.
While
you're doing that, I was just looking. Storm Consultancies commented to say that Liverpool County Council has determined that they will not be commissioning into care homes that have lower than 80% staff vaccinating.
Wow.
So, yeah. Hello, Sonia. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.
So, Sonia, you came through Mark. So, where are you from? Where do you work?
So, I run a HR consultancy. We're a team of 4, and we've been going for quite some time now. But we've got lots of experience in with NHS clients, health and social care clients. So we understand a lot about vaccinations, CQC, all of that side of things. And we're basically HR specialists, and we've got clients up and down the country. So we do a lot of virtual work, and it was via LinkedIn that I kind of connected in with Mark.
Yes, no, thank you very much. And it is great to have you here. And I think, you know, there's been so much talk about mandating vaccines and whether, you know, care providers can or they can't do it legally. And then, you know, we've heard from Barchester saying that they're going to make it mandatory, and, you know, staff that don't have the vaccine won't be able to be employed with them, or if their residents don't have the vaccine, they won't be able to live there. And yeah, I think there's such a grey area. So it's great to have you on so that, you know, people that are watching can ask you questions, we can ask you any questions. And I know that when we connected on LinkedIn, you said that you had some pros and cons about mandating the vaccine. Perhaps you could talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the pros are, you know, safe environment for your staff, safe environment for your residents, safe environment for anybody that is entering those premises, and, you know, trying to do all that you can do. From a health and safety perspective, all employers have got a legal duty to ensure the health and safety of their staff. So what we've been advising to our clients is that, yes, you should be encouraging staff uptake of the vaccination. You should be helping them make informed decisions. You should be talking to them. A lot of people aren't doing the talking part. They're just kind of either then they're really shying away from having the conversation, or they're going in really hard line. Have the conversations, be really open, understand people's points of views, people's barriers, log them, you know, ensure that you are showing that you're having these conversations. So I think the pros are you know, are there, and they speak for themselves, but there are some cons as well. COVID as a whole, from an employment perspective, has brought about this whole set of circumstances that are completely unforeseen in the employment world. There's no case law. Normally we would be looking at, you know, XYZ tribunal claim, you know, something, there's nothing to go on. So you really have to take what we would say is a very sensible and reasonable approach to something like this. I would be asking questions. So when we're having clients talking to us about something like this, you know, our questions are, have you spoken to staff about it so far? What is the general feeling? And also, are you encouraging them? You know, have you given them access to be able to make an informed decision? Are you signposting them to the right places so that they can really make their own decision? And are you having the open conversations? The problem with there not being any real case law around this, or, you know, real clear guidance from the government at the moment, is that we don't know which way it's going to go, because we've got some employment legislation called the Equality Act, which I'm sure you're familiar with in some form or another. And actually, you can't force somebody to take the vaccine. It's very simple. If they've got a health condition, if they've got a disability, they may well use a religious belief. They may well have a protected characteristic under the Equality Act that really means that you can't force them to take it. Yes, you should be openly encouraging them. We've actually done a lot of staff vaccination policies for our clients. So like policies that are really suited to either that industry, be it education, be it health and social care, whatever it might be, and really suited to what our clients want to be communicating to their staff.
Sorry, no, I was on mute. Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I think, you know, touching what you said and what Adam said earlier, there is so much, you know, about talking to your staff and really finding out the reasons why they don't want the vaccine. And I know when I was managing the care home prior to my current role, is, you know, we had staff that they didn't know anything about the vaccine. They had concerns, whatever that concern was, and it was, you know, going away and trying to find that information so you could give them that knowledge. So like you said, they could make that informed decision. And, you know, Donna, Dawn, Adam, you might be able to, you know, tell me more, but, you know, at the time I was phoning public health and they were saying, oh no, you don't need to speak to us, you need to speak to your local doctor. And our doctors would be like, no, you don't need to speak to us, you need to speak to, you know, the vaccine rollout clinic. And there was just no advice you can go. And still now, there's nowhere you can just log on and there's a series of questions. And, you know, I know Co-Produced Care did a vaccine live debate like this, which is really useful, which I sent to, to my staff and friends that I know that work in social care, that, it has questions and answers. It's really informative, but the government still hasn't, released that kind of question and answer. There's nowhere to go. I don't know whether you guys agree or what your opinions are.
I think we're beyond that. I think the question I want to put to Sonia, and I think you're probably not going to answer it, but it is this debate that you said about human rights. And like I say, personally, I am very pro-vaccine, but, we're living in a world where we are meant to not discriminate, where people are allowed to be the person that they are. And I can give one example. One of my staff members who doesn't want it, it is because of her faith. She does not believe in the vaccine. She's never had vaccines all her life, and she has such strong faith. How can the government override human rights, and how can the government override that? I just don't understand how how something can actually be made mandatory. I just don't get it.
I think it's exceptional circumstances, and it's confusing for us as people that advise daily on employment law. We've got this very clear set of legislation that talks to us about equality, about protected characteristics, disability, medical conditions where you can't have the vaccine, but also your beliefs, your religious beliefs and things like that as well. So we've always stuck to that, and we will always advise alongside that. But then you've got potentially something else that's coming out that might actually contradict. So I think the government are going to have to be very careful and very mindful of how they advise around that. Now, I've been onto the Gov website. I've looked at the information that they've published so far about the consultation, and it is a bit grey in certain areas about if staff don't take the vaccine. They're only talking about them not taking it on the basis of medical condition. They refer to the Green Book, which is a big medical book that doctors and GPs alike will use. So I'm presuming they're going to get their kind of set criteria from the Green Book. But again, I think it opens up a really big debate, because people, employment lawyers and people like us that advise on these kind of issues, for us, we're kind of going, okay, we've got the Equality Act over here that says this. We haven't got any case law, and then we've got the government saying X, Y, Z. You also need to be thinking about things like constructive dismissal, which is employees then saying, well, you've left me no choice, so I'm going to resign, but then, slap bang with a constructive dismissal claim.
Yeah.
I think you need to be really careful about how you have these conversations.
Yeah, because that employee is not going to work in any other care home either, because all the care homes are going to be covered by the same law. So, like, Mark mentioned earlier, we're going to have a massive recruitment issue in an industry that is already struggling. And I said it before, my bottom line is I just think it's too early, far too early. Let's have this debate again in another year's time.
I mean, for me, we've got this idea that, we're going to mandate the vaccine and that's going to be that. And then, don't get me wrong, we've had a really great uptake at our service. The majority of people have had it. I've had it. It is what it is. Just to play devil's advocate here, where do we draw the line of harassment? So if I went to my employer, I don't want the vaccine because I don't want it. Oh no, but have you considered this? Have you considered that? Why don't you think about this? Why don't you think about that? And keep talking about it. When does that become harassment to the employee? If we keep going on at them and saying, but actually, why don't you think about this? Why don't you think about that? If this was one of our services, this is one of our residents, we'd be imposing our views and opinions on them for them to make a decision based on what we're saying. So where do we draw the line there? And you said on it, they're not going to go to another home. They're not considering learning disabilities, are they?
I think the first thing to do is have a policy in place. That would be the most important thing, is have a policy and actively encourage it in your policy. But you've got to be answering questions like, updated information to some links and some real valid information that like gov websites, NHS websites, so they can make that informed decision. But also, you know, people are asking questions. You've got to think about this really operationally as well. Well, if I have the vaccine, do I get the day off? Is the time paid or is it unpaid? There's all these kind of questions that are coming up that we are working with our clients on, and then we're developing those policies to make sure that they're in line with what the client and the employer wants to do. But also it sets the expectations there from the employee side of things, so they can very clearly read, you know, a 2-page policy and understand what the organisation's take is. And see that they are being encouraged to take the vaccine, but they're not being forced. About those individual conversations, I think you need to be really, really careful that you aren't constantly harassing the employee, but you need to make sure that they're going in some kind of a direction. So, you know, I would keep them very informal, but I would make notes and summarise them at the end of any meeting that you have like that, talking about the vaccine. And I would also make sure that there is some kind of direction and perhaps some action from each meeting. So if the employee feels that actually I haven't actually looked at all the information that's available, perhaps you agree to meet again in 2-3 weeks time once they've had a chance to digest. Perhaps you signpost them, you make a note about that, and you signpost to them to certain areas. And then you meet back again in a few weeks, and you know, you can ask them how they then feel. It's really about understanding their barriers and if you as an employer can support them.
Thank you. So Michael has commented that the vaccine does not stop the transmission of COVID-19. So I have seen this across social media. What would your advice be, you know, if we had a staff member, or, you know, somebody had a staff member that said, you know, actually, why would I have a vaccine when it doesn't stop the transmission? What's the point? What would your advice be?
I think you can only go on the government advice that's been provided. You know, this whole kind of last 12, 13 months or so, we've had so many questions about COVID, and actually sometimes people think we're medical advisors, or, you know, I've actually had doctors asking me, you know, I've got this symptom and I've got this symptom. You just must go back to basics. You know, we can only go with the information that we are given. And I would, again, just look at what information is available, what's updated from the Gov website, and what information they've got about vaccines, and really, again, just signpost.
I think that's a very interesting point that you've made there, Mark, and in the sense that we did very sadly have an outbreak early this year at the home. Luckily, everybody was absolutely fine, but I had a conversation with Public Health England and said to them that when everybody's had both vaccines, will we still need to test? Why are we still doing PCR and lateral flow tests, you know? And their answer back to me was, yes, we will, because we haven't actually got the evidence yet that you cannot either, you know, you will still transmit and catch COVID. They've definitely got the evidence that after having COVID, you can get it again. They've definitely got the evidence that after one vaccine, you can catch COVID, but there isn't enough evidence yet that after 2 vaccines, you can either transmit it or catch it again. So again, my point is, they're trying to mandate something before we've even got sufficient evidence of, you know, what our status is after 2 vaccines. We're already talking about a booster in September. Now, that's not far away. That's only, 5 months away, and we're talking about needing a booster. So it really does feel like something's being implemented before we've even got enough evidence to say, you know, what it does and what it doesn't do. It's a minefield, isn't it, to be perfectly honest?
I think some people forget, though, that, you know, the majority of vaccines out there work by preventing or reducing the severity of symptoms. There aren't many vaccines out there that work by preventing transmission. Look at the flu vaccine, for example. It doesn't work by preventing transmission. It just works by reducing the symptoms that we currently have. So I think people sat there waiting for a miracle vaccine that's going to come along and eradicate COVID off the face of the earth are going to be waiting a really long time. But I do agree with you. There needs to be more confidence in the data that we're being given around the vaccine. and around its efficacy.
I think one thing for me is, you could have all of your staff team that are vaccinated, you could have all your residents that are vaccinated, so 100% overall, but yet Public Health and Department of Health and Social Care still wouldn't allow your residents and the staff to go out as normal. You still wouldn't be able to take them to a garden centre. You still wouldn't be able to take them shopping. They still can't just go out, spend time with a relative and then come back into the care home. And it almost begs the question of, you're doing all of this to protect everybody, but you're still restricting them so much. There's still so much, there's so much emphasis on that 14-day isolation period, which to me is just unjustified. I just don't understand that at all. And I spent a lot of time, advocating about mental health people with learning disability, but I think even the general population, for all of us that have had to self-isolate, I know I found it incredibly hard for 14 days, to think, I want to go see my daughter or my son or whoever it is, but I've got to self-isolate for 14 days. It puts people in a really tricky position, if they've got capacity. And if they haven't got capacity, do you want to see your daughter? Somebody with dementia would love to see their daughter, but they wouldn't understand that whole 14-day period at the other end of it.
I mean, just going on that 14-day period, Dawn, are you isolating? I mean, I know I'm not. Donna's not. I've seen today, Donna, you've got your nursery back and it's fantastic. But the 14-day isolation?
Absolutely not.
No.
Our residents can go out with their family. We've had grandchildren in, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. No, we're not adhering to any type of isolation for 14 days because somebody goes for a walk around the block or goes and sits in their daughter's garden and eats afternoon tea, and 9 times out of 10, our actual relatives are also doubly vaccinated.
Yeah.
So they've both had their vaccinations as well. So it kind of beggars belief as to why I would physically be the gatekeeper to the outside world now. We opened the doors to the visits and we've allowed people in, but now we're not allowed to allow people out. So it's turning into another major contradiction and vicious circle.
But we've gone backwards though, because before we'd had the vaccines, the guidance was that if the resident went to hospital for an outpatient appointment, or if they were admitted to A&E but returned and didn't actually spend a night in hospital, they didn't need to isolate. But now they've had the vaccine, as you say, they can't go for a walk around the block without isolating for 14 days. To me, we're going backwards as opposed to forwards.
Yeah. I've just got like 1.5 more questions just for Sonia. So for me, I would be concerned how we would add this new addendum to a contract to force people into having the vaccine and making it part of current employee contracts. But then also, and I don't know whether you do know this, Sonia, it's something that I don't think I've heard anyone discuss so far yet, is if come May 23rd or whatever I said, the consultation runs out on, if we come to that and they go, yes, that's it, we must mandate the vaccine, what the heck's going to happen with insurances? Because insurance companies are just going to go, right, all your staff need the vaccine, and if they've not had it, we're not covering you for anything.
I mean, that's a difficult question to answer. When I've looked at the website and the information that I've seen, they've talked about a grace period. So they've talked, but they haven't said how long that's going to be. So my understanding is that if it does go down that route and they do decide to mandate this, you'll be given some time to do it. But there is going to be a lot to do. There's going to be a lot to think about. And operationally, you need to be thinking about things. So everybody's HR is different. If you're a client with us, we will always make sure you make a conditional offer of employment. And we make sure that that conditional offer is based on, X, Y, and Z that's suited to your industry. In your case, there's going to be occupational health checks. There's going to be, DBS assessments. There's going to be everything, the CQC tick list, and probably a bit more. So we're going to have to look at adding this on. So you're going to have to be looking at just the simplest things that you're doing and the processes and amending them. So any new starters, you're going to have to amend your conditional offer letters. You are going to have to amend contracts of employment for new starters. You're also going to have to, your kind of existing staff, you're going to have to go into consultation with them, because you're going to have to look at how this impacts them, and it would be a contractual change. So you are going to have to consult with them appropriately. And I would say that any consultations that you do, again, make sure you've got structure to them. If you're a client with us, we'll probably either do the consultation with you, or we'll give you a script, and we'll make sure you've got all the information there, so that you're saying everything you need to be saying and you feel comfortable doing it. Also making sure that we're understanding the barriers from the employee side of things. But I did make a little list. So offer letters, contracts of employment, having a look at any policies and looking if this actually impacts any of your employment policies that you've got in place, and also understanding if your policies are contractual or not. Now, I know from a lot of clients that we've worked with, a lot of care homes have signed up to big HR firms that kind of give you all the same generic contract, the same generic handbook, and the same generic policies. Now, their contract and their policies are deemed as contractual. We strongly advise against that. So we would be looking to help you put in non-contractual policies in place. You also need to look at your employee privacy notice. So that's about how you hold data on your employees and making sure that that is fit for purpose. So have you communicated it effectively? Because now, as well as holding Hep B status and all the rest of it, everything else that you need, you're actually going to have to add COVID vaccine on there. So you need to look at your privacy notice. Is it fit for purpose? Do you need to amend it? Do you need to update it? Do you need to get it re-signed? You also need to look at how you're going to monitor this. So, we work quite operationally with a lot of our clients, and we understand, I've been in some very large scale CQC inspections and kind of led HR teams on that. So really understanding when we are being inspected, what is that CQC inspector going to want to see? So they're going to want to see evidence of it from the recruitment side of things, but also existing staff members. Just to complicate things, we've got potential boosters. So how are we going to be recording and monitoring that? We would suggest something that we would put in place where we, something that you populate yourself, but we kind of formulate it for you. So it's like a traffic light system that might come up red when someone's due for a booster. So you can show your, during your inspection, that you've got a way to monitor this. You also have to have a clear plan for staff who refuse the vaccine. So there's going to be a couple of options that would be available to you at that point. But you need to be mindful of things like constructive dismissal claims, unfair dismissal claims. And I'm sure that you've seen that British Gas have been in the press a lot in the last week for something called hire and refire, which is called dismiss and re-engage, which is where employees, after extensive consultation, don't sign up to new contracts of employment. So you dismiss them and you automatically re-engage them on new terms. It's very contentious, but again, and there is risk attached to all of these options for you, for employers, but you need to be considering all of those and how they impact your business. And also the other thing is, when you're working with agencies, you have to show that that any agency staff fit a certain level of criteria from a CQC perspective. So you're going to have to add this on to that as well. You might need to have those conversations with your agency providers about how you're going to ensure that people have got the vaccinations. So there's quite a lot to probably roll out, think about and do in that time period. It's as I was kind of writing this down, the checklist just started growing and growing, and there's probably more things that I haven't mentioned yet that will probably surface.
I mean, is there a chance that this consultation is going to be a thing of, right, well, let's say it happens and they mandate vaccines, so that's what the consultation proves. Is there a chance that this is like, well, this is what the outcome is, but it's not going to come into play till 2023? Or do you think it'll be something that comes into play a lot sooner? I mean, we are a pandemic, so it probably will do, but
yeah, it will be sooner. But working in this environment, sometimes things are put on us really, really last minute, and we are expected to turn around miracles, aren't we? very, very quickly. So I think that they will give some grace period, but if that grace period is really workable, I don't know. And what I would be saying to you is make sure that you've got the right team around you to help you understand all of that information, really, and how it's going to impact it. So even if you do get to a position where you've got a staff member that's refused the vaccine, you can show all the reasonable steps that you've taken as an employer to engage with that staff member and help them make the informed decision. So if you are open to risk, you're really mitigating that risk. And that's what we would be advising if this happens.
There
A
we
lot
go.
of work there to do, guys, then.
Just what we need on the back end of a pandemic, eh?
Yeah. It'll only take me one day to get all that paperwork done.
We have. Oh, go on, Adam.
No, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Adam has very kindly popped Sonia's details for anybody that wants to make contact. So her Twitter handle, her email address, and her phone number. Yeah, I think, that advice you were giving there, Sonia, is invaluable. I hadn't even thought about, the privacy notice and, the data that we hold on staff, and something I definitely didn't do before I left the care home. So, but yeah, and I think you touched on a really valid point about, agencies, because there's a lot of agencies that are going to be going into care homes, but also domiciliary care providers that will be providing their staff. But will they be vaccinated? Because it wouldn't be mandatory for them. And I think, I do feel like this is a part that the government hasn't considered, and maybe that's just lack of involving, people within the actual care industry, before they did the consultation. But you definitely touched on something there. And I think, again, is that going to, hinder the delivery of care that we can give to residents? Because if we're contacting agencies saying, we need a shift this weekend, and they're like, well, we don't have anybody that's vaccinated, are we then going to be in a position to say, well, actually, we can't use your staff? And it's the agency themselves, are they going to be in a position, where they can't make their staff because it's not mandatory either? And again, that could lead to, more people leaving the industry, because of frustration that they can't get work, or, and care businesses that, might struggle to, cover those shifts that need covering, which then, potentially leads to further problems and safeguardings down the road.
I think it is a much wider picture, because, that from looking at what the government has kind of published so far, it's really anybody that is coming into that environment. And they are recognising that there are a lot of people. So as well as people, domiciliary care staff, kitchen staff, cleaners, we've got some clients that are in the primary care sector. So, they're big GP partnerships. And I know from working with them really closely, they do ward rounds at care homes once a week. So, it's whoever goes from their side of things. You have to make sure they're all vaccinated before they get, paramedics, anything. It becomes as big as it can be, really. And I think there's going to be a lot of logistical questions that you're going to need to consider. Yeah,
I think it's definitely wider. I think back to all the people that would have come into our care home pre-pandemic, and I think we state the obvious, like the doctors and dentists and bits and pieces, but even somebody like a maintenance man, or somebody coming to fix your lawnmower, that kind of thing, all those minor jobs that you don't really have day to day, that somebody that just might be coming in, something like an electrician coming to change a light fitting or something, I think the implication is going to be quite big.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned residents. We saw on Twitter today, I'll be honest, I've got one resident who hasn't had the vaccine. She's got dementia. She's got no residents. So her next of kin are solicitors, but the solicitors only have power of attorney over property and finance. They don't have it for health and welfare. So they did not feel that they could make a decision. So we had a best interest meeting, and she is in her late 90s with dementia, can be resistive to care, and the outcome of the best interest meeting was for her not to have it. So what about a resident who hasn't had the vaccine? You know, where do they become? And we have seen on Twitter today that there is a company that have made the decision that perhaps the residents who haven't had the vaccine will not be able to join in with communal activities. They won't be able to go to the dining room. They won't be able to go to communal areas of the lounge. So that is another debate on their own. So what are we going to do? Is that resident going to spend the rest of their entire life in their room, isolated, never going to be able to come out? You know, so it is most definitely a wider debate than just talking about staff and professionals coming into the homes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I did it. I was on mute. I think I'm the first person to do that live. Yeah, I'm an expert at it. No, I completely agree. And I think that was an absolutely fantastic discussion. We probably could talk about it all night long, all week long, all year long. It's a discussion that's something that I don't think is going to go away, and probably will feature again, if not in the next couple of months, on the chat show. I just want to say thank you, Sonia, for joining us tonight. And I hope you don't mind that your details are up there. And you know, Sonia seems to know everything. So anyone needing HR advice, head on to Next HR.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's been really nice to be able to talk to people that really understand the environment. Like I said, we've done a lot of HR in this environment, so we really understand what the environment is up against, and how it potentially might change very, very quickly.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no, I think you've definitely given everybody so much to think about, Sonia. So yeah, thank you very much for reaching out and joining us.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Take care, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, guys, what a debate. Honestly, it could go on. And I think the thing is, it's going to go on. And I think we are going to come back to this topic again in May when we hit that target and when we find out what the answer is and when we know more about it, really. So it's definitely going to be one that we're going to come back to in future weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Completely.
Definitely. I'd quite like to know how some of the big care groups have already mandated their vaccines. So, and telling staff, I'd like to know how, after listening to Sonia explaining everything that you've got to put in place and all the work that's got to be done in order to do that, and privacy notices, how these big care groups are already saying, if you haven't had a vaccine by the 30th of April, you can't work for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd really like
so would I.
manage that.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I do think there is something to be said for these big companies who are able to go, well, this is what we've done and that's that. Because, those are the ones that influence the public image of social care, because that's all people see. So I think they drive that conversation moving forwards. I mean, I know we've only got, 13 minutes left of the show tonight, but we've not even touched upon, Mark, how they're not even contemplating it for learning disability services and what that effect's going to have moving forward. I mean, you've done a ton of work, haven't you, to try and raise the awareness of COVID within learning disabilities. So what do you think of the fact that it's only elder care that's being considered for this?
Yeah, I think there's two aspects. I think, you've got elderly learning disability care homes where you might have one person or a couple of people living in that learning disability home that is over 65. So then you're going to potentially have those residents and those staff mandated, but yet they might go to a club, in the evening further down the road, and they're going to be mixing with staff and other, people that go to that club from other care homes that haven't been vaccinated. And I think for me, when I saw it was just for elderly care homes, and, I filled in the questionnaire from the government, is that, throughout the whole pandemic, people with a learning disability just seem to have been forgotten. They just seem to have been left behind. And, through all those months and months of campaigning to finally get them, eligible for testing, eligible for the vaccine, to then, not be considered equal to, elderly, when we know that the death rate is higher than the elderly population, or the risk of death from COVID is higher, it just seems ludicrous to me. It just seems like a step backwards. And I think in general, I think that is, unfortunately, the case for people living with a learning disability. It's almost like one step forward, two back. And, it just means that, we've got a campaign, we've still got a campaign, we've got to campaign harder. But I do feel sorry, and I think there will be a lot of families out there that, quite rightly so, are worried about, their children or, their loved ones that are living within a care home. And I think they see it, don't they? They see elderly all the time in the news and the media, and what about them, and their loved ones living in a care home? Oh, you're on mute again, Adam.
I swear, this is going to be. I'm just going to put my name down as muted man for the next one. That's going to be that. Or muted person. He, they, them. Those are my pronouns. Use what you want. But no, I think for anyone watching this back and thinking that we're just focusing on the staff aspect of this, we completely recognise the importance of being vaccinated and protecting people in our homes, and we understand our duty of care to those we're supporting. We're not denying that. We're not debating that. That's not up for contest with us. That's paramount. We need to keep people safe within our homes. It's trying to see the staffing as an entity themselves as well, and where do we draw the lines on whose rights come first, and what's the rights that trumps the other rights. I think this one really is going to be for Dawn and Donna. We've had another question in the chat from Ella. If someone is not working in a care home, how can they support the care homes after all they've gone through in the past year? Having the vaccine, but I assume that a lot of other change that's needed. Dawn, Donna, what do you think? Volunteers in care homes, how can people help if they've had the vaccine?
I think they should definitely come into care homes. The volunteers that we've had over the pandemic and over the last year have mainly been families. So it was a way for us to encourage families in by encouraging them to volunteer and come in and spend time with their relatives as well as others. And we've had some amazing volunteers come in that have now moved on into new roles. So they've developed themselves from the volunteer role and moved on from simple things like making a cup of tea to helping in the laundry to now working as a general assistant or helping make the beds or spending time reading and doing activities and things like that. So there's so many ways that people can volunteer, even if they don't want to come into the care home and want to help in the garden areas or outside. So we've had some lovely volunteering stuff. We've had cakes delivered and arts and crafts and woolly mitts, and it's been really kind.
Yeah, we used to have a lot of the school children in, those who were doing GCSE, health and social care, or even those doing A-levels. And they used to come in towards volunteering, people who were thinking of going into any aspect of health and social care, from being a medic, midwife, to even not quite sure what they want to do. And we miss them so much because they were just, such a big part of the home. And yeah, volunteers can do so much for us. And the same with the relatives. The relatives are volunteers as well. They're coming back in now and they're assisting us at meal times. It's a huge, we've got, I would say, 30% of our residents definitely need assistance at mealtime. So when you're talking a 40-bedded home, I've got more people who need assisting at meal times than I've got care assistants. So how does that work? Somebody has to wait. So these people are an integral part of the care within the care home, and we need them back in desperately.
We've got some residents that don't have family. So when they see, we've got some relatives from other residents' family who enjoy spending time with the other residents and become part of their routine when they visit. So it's really nice that the residents who don't have family visit or don't have family at all, they actually get to see somebody and get to create friendships and bonds. So it's really important.
Yeah, we all know staff don't have time. We all know that. We always say that the one thing I hate hearing is, we're short staffed. I absolutely hate it. We all would want so many more staff in the home, but we can't. The funds aren't there for it. 80% of my income goes on staff costs. That is a huge amount. When you think of everything else we have to pay for, not just everything at home that you think of, your utility bills, your nursing consumables, your food, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. That is a huge amount. So those volunteers are absolutely, massive. And we need to be getting back to some kind of normality. We've got the testing there. It's all available and everything. And yeah, I'm more than happy for volunteers to come back into our home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you've both touched on something really important. I think, Dawn, like you said, how that somebody can just come in and just spend time talking to somebody, somebody with, like you said, that doesn't have any family or might not speak to anyone that whole day. That one interaction actually might make their day, could make their whole week. And I think, Donna, you've touched on something that I've not even considered, which was, about people from universities or from colleges or doing work experience in care homes. And actually, the vaccine is mandated. How are we going to get these students into the care homes, and how are we going to, get them that experience and, bring in that younger generation that are actually going to be the workforce of tomorrow?
Yeah. It's very true. I mean, I have every year, we've literally got a school just up at the top of the road, and we have the students come down. Those students become volunteers. Those volunteers become bank carers. They go off to university or they go off to college. They work for us. And I always kind of sort of joke that I'm nurturing the NHS of the future, because realistically, they don't come back to me. They go off to work in the NHS. But that is so important for them. And I've had so many of my students who have sailed through their first year at university because of the experience that they've had with me. But they're going to be the very last to be vaccinated. We know that they are. I know that we're racing on with this vaccination program, but we're not going to have those sort of people in. And when are we going to have that even younger generation in? At the moment, the visiting guidance is it age 5 and under, 3 and under? Is it under school age? So what about that gap in between? What about the 6 to 18-year-olds? Whenever are they going to be able to come back in the care homes? There's just so much still, so many barriers in the way still.
Completely agree. Before Mark bids us all adieu, should we have a quick look at what the poll's saying just before we disappear? Because that has been running for the last day and a half. So let me see if I can remember how to do this.
There we are.
It's an
definitely got more notes.
Yeah.
That is really, I've got to admit, I am surprised. I know it's what we were, thinking, but isn't what I thought the general public were thinking. So, I am surprised. I hope somebody from government somewhere along this line may be watching this on playback in the next week. That's all I can say.
I mean, I know it's quite a straightforward question, yes or no, and a consultation has to be more in depth than that. But it's interesting to see that the country is so divided on it, it's so split on it. But there we are.
I think for me, it would be, that 5% that are unsure. I'd love to know. And if you're watching, please do comment. Or if you're watching on catch up, please do drop us a comment about, what was it that made you unsure, and that you didn't want to put no or yes, because I'd be definitely intrigued into knowing that. But yes,
Yeah.
I did put a comment up then, but I took it down because I realised I was blocking Dawn's face again. So
It wasn't me this time.
Next week I'll have to do a storm off like a very famous presenter.
I know. There's just so much that we haven't touched on. Honestly, guys out there, we set a kind of agenda for these pros, and it's amazing where an hour goes. And we knew that the vaccines was going to be a big debate, but I mean, Mark, if you can round up what we've still got on the agenda and what we're possibly planning for next week.
Yes, so obviously we always welcome your feedback. So if there's any topics that you want us to discuss, anything you want us to talk about, if there's a poll you want us to run, then please let us know, because the show's not just about us four sitting here. We want you to be engaged. We want you to be involved, and the more you can let us know what you want to hear about, the better. So we've got lots of things lined up. So we want to spend time talking to you about mental health and, some of the amazing services that are out there, that we can signpost you to. And I think, we hear a lot about mental health now. It's not such a taboo subject, but I still think, there's such a grey area about, providing people with that support and the information of actually where to go to. We want to talk to you about activities in care homes. We want to talk to you about domiciliary and how that's going to look for the future and the future of social care in general. So we've got so many amazing ideas and topics, but please do let us know what you want us to talk about. Adam, Dawn, Donna, I don't know if you've got anything else you want to say before we tune out.
I just want to bring forward speakers like tonight. It was just fantastic having Sonia on. And like Mark said there, it isn't just about us four. We are very aware that we're quite a niche group and we don't want this platform to be about that. So, you know, we want guest speakers on the show. We want people to pose questions for us. We want you to tell us what you want us to debate about. But, you know, we might not have all the answers, but we're happy to show it on this platform. So, you know, please comment, email us, you know, just let us know, guys, what you want to hear us discuss.
Yeah, and I mirror exactly what Donna and Mark have said. So hopefully we'll get loads of feedback over the next week. So we've got loads of information to be able to share.
I don't think there's anything left to say. I think that summed it all up for me. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. You know, you'll get notified each week when we go live at 7:30. And just keep sharing these videos. You know, it's an open platform for everyone in social care. We want to be the media that allows care to have a voice. So just get in touch.
Well, I've got no final comments. Thank you very much, Adam, for reminding everybody to subscribe because, yeah, I definitely would have forgotten. So well, thank you, you three, again. And thank you for everybody who's listened. And we look forward to seeing you next week and hearing from you all. Good night.
No. Are we not doing the exclusive? Are we not branching out onto another platform?
Yes, I'll let you tell us more.
Oh, well, you're setting it up. We're setting up a group up. You're setting us a group up because you're the best at this. We'll run over a minute. You can let us know quickly so people know what to look out for.
Yes, so we're very aware that we have a lot of managers and people in social care contact us with questions and they want advice. And I think sometimes we might be duplicating information. So we're going to set up a Facebook page. It's not just for people that work in social care. It can be for relatives. It can be for the volunteers. It can be for managers. It can be, you know, anybody that wants to join this group can. And we want to be there to, you know, answer any questions you've got, to provide support. So like when Ella asked that question about volunteering, we will be able to help her, but also we might be able to signpost her to a care home that is doing volunteering so that actually she can carry on doing that amazing work. It might be that you're a manager and you've listened tonight and you think, I don't know where to start with a privacy, you know, notice or what to include. And between us, you know, we might be able to network you with somebody like Sonia from Next to HR, or we might be able to help you. So yeah, look out for that group because that's coming soon and we hope that you'll join. And on that note, I will say good night.
Good night,
everyone.
Bye.